What's up, Hydra fam? So today we're going to be talking about preventative maintenance that you can do on your machine, just overall checks that you can do to make sure that your machine is running well, properly, and lasts you a very long time. So before we check anything on the machine, the first thing you want to do is come behind the machine and flip the power switch and unplug the power cord. That way we don't have any power going into the machine, so that as you're checking anything underneath here, you don't get electrocuted. So after we do that, you'll want to remove the motor hood. That's held on by 4 screws around the motor hood. You can remove those screws with a screwdriver. Sometimes they are hex screws, just so you guys are informed. And once the motor hood's removed, if you haven't been under here in quite a while, you'll notice that there's a lot of dust, debris, hair. If you have pets, a lot of pet hair that build up all in these crevices, in these corners, and all the nooks and crannies. So you'll want to get a vacuum and vacuum all that hair, dust, debris out. Because if you don't, that hair is going to build up inside your motor controller board. It's going to overheat your motor controller board. That's going to cause issues. It'll cause problems with your drive motor because it will get stuck in your drive motor. If you come to the drive motor, there are little vents here. Sometimes there's a fan in the front, and behind the fan there's vents, and all that stuff can get stuck in there. There's also sometimes on drive motors vents on the sides going around it. You'll want to take the vacuum in there, vacuum the vents here, and if I turn on a light here to help us see, behind the wheel, a lot of dust can get stuck in there as well. You just can spin it, check it with your finger, get a vacuum that out. In fact, just to show you guys how bad it is, I pulled this right from underneath there. This built up all around the edges, and you'll need to pull that out. Pretty disgusting. So once you get that out, your drive motor should be good. Your motor controller board should be good once you vacuum out all the crevices in there. And the next check you'll want to do, we'll come over here, is your drive belt. You'll want to check the condition of your drive belt, and you can do that by checking the ribbing underneath over time as it's getting used over and over and over. The ribbing underneath can start tearing, ripping, so just put your finger underneath here, move the wheel, put your finger underneath again, and just check all around the drive belt to see if there's any tears. You'll also know that your drive belt's going bad if you notice a lot of the dust looks black. So over time, as this is getting used, there's a lot of drive belt shavings that end up inside the treadmill or underneath the motor hood. So if it looks black, that's a sign you're probably going to need a new drive belt. What you also want to check on your drive belt is the tension. So you can twist it a little bit. If this is the amount of twist you can do on your drive belt, it has good tension on it. But if it's twisting more than like the halfway point, and it's not, you can see it hardly has any give right now, but let's say you're able to pull this up quite a bit, this is too loose, you'll want to get that tightened. So we actually have a video on replacing drive belts, so if you do need to replace one, we'll put a link in the description down below and also in the corner up above. The next thing you'll want to check is your front roller, this guy right here. With front rollers, sometimes the bearings go bad, and if you spin this wheel or even just move the belt, sometimes you may hear a rattling noise, and that's just, like I said, the bearings going bad. If that's the case, you're going to have to replace your front roller. We also have a video on that, so I'll provide that in the link down below and in the corner up above on how to replace these. So just keep that in mind. Test to see if you could hear those sounds, and if you don't, you got a good front roller. After you check the drive belt, front roller, the very next thing you'll want to do is check the overall connections of your wires. So since there are moving parts in this machine, sometimes wires are shaking, getting moved, and they can get loosened on the motor controller board. Some motor controller boards, you'll notice they have hot glue holding them in, which is pretty cool. But if they don't, like I said, some of these can get loose, and then you're wondering why there's problems with your machine. well, you have a loose wire. So just check them all, make sure they're seated properly, make sure they're clipped in properly. They may not be clipped in or a little loose. And you'll also notice some of the wires may be zip tied to the machine, which is nice, keeping them fixed in a certain position. The very next thing after that to check is your speed sensor. Now in this particular machine, the speed sensor is located right on the drive motor, so we're not really gonna have any problems here, but some older machines have the speed sensor running across the frame all the way to where the front roller is, and it'll come up here, be pinned by a screw, and it'll point at a magnet at the front drive roller. So those speed sensors can get loosened, they can point at an angle or just be hanging off, and that's what's causing sometimes the speed fluctuations or your walking belt turning off on you as you're trying to start the machine and try to run on it. So you'll want to make sure that speed sensor is properly screwed in, pointing straight at that magnet, and is not loose at any point. We have a video on that as well, so if you want to learn more about speed sensors and how to check them, we'll put that in the link down below, or the description down below. So that's overall the main things you want to check underneath the motor hood. Once you check all those things, the very next thing you want to do is check your walking belt and the deck. So let's go on over there. All right, so we're here at the walking belt and the deck, and you'll notice that it's actually pretty dirty. We are going to go over how to properly clean your walking belt and deck in just a moment, but the thing you want to check first is the condition of your walking belt. Now, what you'll want to notice with your walking belt is as you scan it up and down, try to look for any tears, any rips. Check the seam of the walking belt, that there's no separation in it, that this is in good condition, you know, there's no tears or rips in here or separation. You'll want to check the edge of your walking belt, see if there's any tears or rips in the edges. That does happen sometimes. And you'll also notice when you look at it, there's these little fuzzies that start popping out of it. This happens over time as it's getting worn. Now, this is fine, this little bit that's popping out. This is still really good walking belt. You don't got to worry about that. But over time, as it constantly is being in use, this will get to the extent that it'll pop out that you could even peel it. You could even pull it out like threads. That just tells you that you are going to have to replace this walking belt. So keep that in mind, take note of that. Move the walking belt down with your hand and check the other side of the walking belt for any tears, rips. You know, don't just check this side and think, oh, I checked it. No, this is a whole belt that goes all the way around the treadmill deck. So remember that. Then you'll want to check the deck itself. So you want to stick your hand underneath your belt and feel on the deck for any scratches, any dents, any cracks. You can check all throughout the deck. Go on the other side, stick your hand underneath, check all throughout the deck. And if you notice any scratches or dents, you are going to have to, unfortunately, replace your deck. And we do have a video on deck replacement, so if you want to do it yourself, you could check that, link in the description. Now let's go over how to clean your walking belt and deck. Now for those of you that don't need to clean this and you're looking for the next steps to your preventative maintenance, you could skip forward in the video to belt tension and deck lubrication. Those are the very next things we are going to do, but as of right now, I'm going to show you guys how to clean first your walking belt. So before cleaning the walking belt, you'll want to put on that motor hood and screw it in. And the reason being is because this will provide us with extra coverage and protection, since we are going to be putting water on that belt, and we don't want any of that water getting into the electronics, into the wires, and then shorting out the board, and then God forbid causing a fire, things of that nature. After that, you'll want to plug in the treadmill with the power cord again, and then flip the switch, turning it on. Once the treadmill is on, then you'll want to set the speed to about 3 to 4 miles per hour. So start the treadmill, get that belt running, and then after the belt is running, you'll want to get either a squeegee mop or a rag, wet it with some water, don't use any chemicals or any soap, and then firmly press it against the walking belt. Hold it against the walking belt, moving left to right to get the full walking belt clean, and then you'll want to take that off, clean out that sponge, clean out that wet rag. There's going to be a lot of dirt in there. Re-soak it, squeeze it, and then apply it again to the walking belt. You don't want to have too much water in that rag, too much water in that sponge. You just squeeze it out and then press it onto the walking belt, and then again move left to right. And you'll notice that a lot of the dirt has been taken off, and then all you got to do after that is just simply let the belt run for a couple minutes so that it can dry. Now that the top of the belt is clean and dry, let's move forward to cleaning the underside of the belt and the deck. So what you'll need is a long towel that you can slip underneath that belt all the way to the other side. If you're struggling to slip the belt underneath, your walking belt is probably too tight, and you can loosen that via the rear roller bolts. Just loosen those bolts and that should loosen the belt up. Then you could pull the towel all the way across. Once the towel is across, place your feet on either end of the towel on top of the rails to hold it firmly in place. Then turn the treadmill on to about 2 miles per hour and stand on the towel for about a minute. This should clean the underside of the belt of any excess lubricant, dust, hair, dirt, whatever have you. After that, we're going to stop the treadmill, grab a hold of the towel, and sweep across the deck up and down like you see here. That should get rid of all the dust that is all the way across the deck from the bottom of the treadmill to the top. So now that the belt and deck are pretty clean, as you can clearly see, the last two things you want to check are belt tension and deck lubrication. Some of you guys probably had to loosen up this belt by loosening the rear roller bolts back there in order to get the towel through. If you had to do that, just tighten those bolts to tighten the belt, and then check to see if the belt is at a good tension. How you can do that is coming to the middle of the treadmill, lifting the belt, and then sticking your hand underneath. Reach as far as you can across the deck and see where your hand lies. If your hand reaches to about the halfway point or midway across the deck, maybe even a little bit further, then that means this belt is at a good tension. But if your hand is able to reach even further than that, I would say like 75 to 85% of the way across the deck, then you know this belt is too loose and is gonna need to be tightened some more. Another method you can do to check to see if it's at a good tension is turning on the treadmill and turning it on to about like 3-4 miles per hour, getting on the treadmill, walking, and then doing a firm stomp on the walking belt occasionally. If you notice that when you do the stomp, this belt catches or slips underneath you, then that signifies the belt is too loose and needs a tightening. If you want to learn more about how to properly tension your walking belt and more methods to check to see if it's at a good tension level, we did do a video going more in depth about that. I'll provide that in the description down below. And we also did a video on how to center your walking belt. A lot of people struggle with their belt moving too far to the left or shifting too far to the right, and it's always staying over there. And that is caused because the rear roller bolts are off. It may have been too tightened on one side or too loosened on the other, and that's what's causing the shifting. So we did do a video on how to properly center your walking belt. I'll put a link to that in the description as well, so you guys can check that out. Now let's check to see if this treadmill needs lubrication. So the recommendation is that you should be lubing your treadmill once every 3 months or checking to see if it needs lubrication once every 3 months. I would say that's more for the casual user, someone that's not on it every day, but for the more intense user that's on it every day, is running on it quite frequently, you should be checking this once every 2 to 3 weeks or once every month. And how you can check to see if your treadmill needs lubrication is, again, coming to the middle of the treadmill, lifting the belt, stick your hand underneath, and feel across the deck. If the deck feels pretty slippery and you scrape across the top of the deck lightly with your nail and you feel any sort of liquid or slipperiness underneath your nails, that's how you know the treadmill is at a good lubrication and doesn't need to be lubed. But if you feel underneath that the deck is dry, it's still gonna feel smooth, but the deck feels dry and like there's no liquid under there, it's not slippery, then that's how you know this treadmill needs a lubrication. So another thing to keep in mind is when you clean your treadmill with that towel like we showed earlier, that's probably sweeping all that lubricant out and sucking it in. And then when you remove the towel, all the lubricant is on that towel. So you're gonna have to check to see if you're gonna have to re-lube this treadmill and then obviously apply as needed. So if you guys are looking for lubricant, we do sell that. We sell 100% silicone, and a lot of treadmills use also water-based silicone, so that's okay too. I think a lot of manufacturers, that's what they actually put in it first before giving it out and selling it to you. But most treadmill use 100% silicone, and we do provide that. So if you want to buy some, link is in the description. That's about it. So thank you guys for watching. If you found this very, very helpful and useful, please leave us a like. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe to our channel. And if you have any questions, leave us a comment down below. We'd very much be happy to answer any questions you guys have. So see you guys in the next one.